You're listening to a Platforms podcast, your source for cutting-edge, relevant Torah. Enjoy. This is the official getting back together of Platforms, the 5th year, and it's going to be awesome, and there's going to be amazing series on the podcast itself. You'll find it literally anywhere. I literally downloaded like 15 podcast apps yesterday and just see if they were all there, and it's all there. We decided on series that needed to be told. So just because it's recent doesn't mean that old stuff is bad stuff. There's an awesome series by Rabbi Akiva all about proving God. Okay, literally go step by step. It's 4 different shurim, proving God. There's tons of stuff by other people. And so far we got 1 year down, meaning if you want to go listen to something about Pesach during Pesach, there's at least 5 things there for Pesach. You understand? 5 things for Shavuos, Rosh Hashana, Yom Kippur. You're going to find plenty of content there already. It's not only necessary to find the stuff today. Definitely go for it. Now, today is also super special because this is the first time Asaf is giving a shiur, and this is amazing. Without further ado, Asaf, bring it away.
Okay, thank you everybody for coming out to listen to me. I know it's hard to come out to listen to people, especially when it's me. I find it very apropos that the first podcast shiur that we're organizing is also on the topic of Rosh Hashana, or the head of the year, the beginning of the year. So we're approaching now the auspicious time of Rosh Hashana, which many people take for granted the meaning behind. People just assume that it's a very important time. It's the day of judgment. It's the time where you go to shul and pray for excessive hours. Well, hopefully, if you stay the entire time, and eat food, and people tell you not to sleep. That's what Rosh Hashanah is for most people. People don't really get to the nitty-gritty of what's going on over here. Yeah, you blow some nice horns, but what exactly is going on over here? We, the Jewish people, we like to overthink to a certain extent. I wouldn't call it overthink, but to think about what we're actually doing before we actually do things, especially when it comes to the times of the Moadim, of the holidays. When we approach a holiday, it has to be specifically on that time, and what we are doing on that time is not some arbitrary coincidence of whatever. We never approach a holiday in a stance of, whatever, it's a holiday. Well, you go to any other religion, you say, what do you do in, I don't know, Christmas? I don't know, we get together with the family, we talk with each other, we eat, but why? Well, it's the day old man G was born, but who cares? He died, didn't he? Right? Like, who cares? Well, it's an important day. You get with the family. Yeah, I understand. You get with the family, but why? And that's where usually it ends. Call those 1-800-TRUTH hotline to just tell you need faith. Can save a lot of time now. But the Jewish people are not like that. We don't approach a holiday with a happenstance approach. We approach it with meaning. We approach it with purpose, and that's how I think we need to approach Rosh Hashanah. And if you don't have a sense of what's going on in Rosh Hashanah, I think that this year might get you on the right foot. And if you do have a good idea already of what we're accomplishing at Rosh Hashanah, I still think that it's definitely worth seeing it from a different angle. But a good way to start analyzing what is the mission statement of a holiday is to look at the tradition and at the liturgy of the holiday itself. And when we look at the liturgy of Rosh Hashanah, we see 3 major concepts that repeat themselves over and over and over again. And it comes across in many different ways. But the 3 concepts are, and we have them also not only in the liturgy, but also in the Talmud: Malchiyot, kinghood, where we are supposed to anoint God or crown God. Zichronot, remembrances, where we're supposed to remember our past, or have God remember our past, however you understand it. And lastly, we have the concept of shofot, which is the most This one is the most popular one. This is the one with the horns, with the fancy horns that go toot, 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 you know? Everybody loves shofrot, but why? Why do we have horns on this day? What is this concept of anointing God as a king? Also, what is this concept of zichronot? Why do we need to do zichronot? But these are three concepts that repeat themselves constantly over and over again, and by analyzing them, I believe we may deduce what is the purpose of Rosh Hashanah. Also, on a side, we do have this sort of tradition or concept that Rosh Hashanah, alongside Yom Kippur, like this entire ordeal, starting in Rosh Hashanah, leading into the 10 days of Tshuva and Yom Kippur, and also for many of us who are praying Slichot every single day, this whole entire period of the year is colored with the concept of Tshuva, with the concept of Yom Hadin, the Day of Judgment, which also I believe requires looking into what is this Yom Hadin, what are we judging, who are we judging, how are we judging, and I would like to start from there, from this concept of Din. Now, the father of Din in Jewish tradition is Yitzchak, the son of Abraham, Yitzchak. Now, very conveniently for us, on Rosh Hashanah, we talk about Akedat Yitzchak, the day Yitzchak was taken up to Har HaMoriah and placed on the altar, on the Mizbeach. Now, he is the concept of Din, the concept of judgment. Okay? Now, he is also the only person in the Bible that we know reaches a point of relationship that emanates love, that leads up to an existence of love. The first time we have the word ahava in the Torah comes about with Yitzchak, which is very interesting because you look at judgment and you say that's a very harsh, strict thing. How could somebody who is the father of judgment lead towards love? So I think we need to go back and understand what is Din. And I would like to go back, I went a little bit, I skipped a little bit ahead, but I would like to go back before even going down this rabbit hole, which we went down a little bit. What happened on Rosh Hashanah? On Rosh Hashanah, people think it's the creation of the world. That's not true. The world was created 5 days before. Rosh Hashanah is the creation of man. There must be something that we don't just celebrate. Again, we don't just celebrate the creation of man because man was created on this day. We celebrate the creation of man because this is something that impacts us in our present state right now in 2019. No matter who you are, Asaf Fedida or Danny Sprung or whoever it is, Justin Trudeau. We celebrate the creation of man because it has something it's something to impact you. So now, what is the purpose of man? Well, we can try to analyze the purpose of man, not in the entire, well, I won't get into the entire purpose of man, but we can try to begin analyzing the purpose of man by trying to see what is the first thing he does once he gets into the world. Now, this is where the source sheets come in. In Bereshit, Perek Aleph, Psukim Chav Vav through Chav Chet, we talk about the creation of man, and within literally the first pasuk of the creation of man, the first two psukim, Vayomer Elohim na'aseh adam betzalmenu, let us make man in our fashion, kedmutenu ve'yirdu bedagat hayam v'of shamayim, okay, whatever, va'ivra Elohim et ha'adam betzalmo, betzalem Elohim, bara oto zachar u'nekeva, male and female. Okay, interesting. And the next pasuk, vayevarech otam Elohim, they were just created. Vayevarech otam Elohim, and God blesses them, vayomer lehem, and he tells them, Elohim, vayomer lehem Elohim, sorry, pru urvu umil'u et ha'aretz. Go ahead and, be fertile and increase, and fill the earth, and master it, and can rule the world. So from the moment that we talk about the creation of man, they're already being told to go ahead and Bria Revia. Okay. Next, the next source on the source sheet, Bereshit Bet. Vayomer Hashem Elokim, Lo tov heyot adam levado. It's not good for the man to be by himself. This is, by the way, the first time we get back to the concept of man, of sentient man, in the second parak, which is a recap of the entire creation again. And God is saying it's not good for the man to be by himself. I'll make him a wife. ויצר אדוני אלוהים מן האדמה כל חיית השדה ואת כל עוף השמיים ויבוא אל האדם לראות מה יקרה לו. And so, as God is creating all the animals, He brings them up to Adam and He names them by name. He gives them their identity. He gets to a level of understanding every single animal that He is able to give them their name, their identity. ויקרא האדם שמות לכל הבהמה ולעוף השמיים ולכל חיית השדה ולאדם לא מצא עזר כנגדו. Adam names all the animals, but alas, he does not find an ezer kenegdo. The Sephira translated, a fitting helper. Okay? Now, if we continue a little farther, when God finally creates for man a woman, the first woman, Chava, for him, ויאמר האדם, זאת הפעם עצם מעצמי, a bone from mine, ובשר מבשרי, לזאת יקרא אישה, for this I will call a woman, כי מאיש לקחה זאת, because it was taken from man. So זאת הפעם, what does it mean? ויאמר האדם, זאת הפעם, this time, Rashi explains on that, מלמד שבא אדם על כל בהמה וחיה, that he had a relationship with every single animal that came in front of him, ולא נתקרא דעתו בהם, and he wasn't satiated by any of them until he came up to the woman. What is going on here? What the heck is going on here? If you realize this, let's look back let's just look back a little bit. God just creates man, and the first thing we know about him is that he's sleeping with every single animal to try to find himself a mate. That's some weird stuff, if you ask me. So now, I believe that what's going on here is that man is created for the sake of having relationships. And Onkelos says that kind of clearly, that nefesh melala, man is the only animal that can talk. As the Rambam explains, man is a medaber, he's a speaker. What do you mean? But no other animal is a speaker? Dolphins can communicate. You know, cows can communicate for all I know. What's so special about man? So they have fancier speaking equipment. What's the big deal? You know? It's that they're the only people that are able to express one another and understand another person's identity. That's a relationship, if you ask me. Communication. So we see that man was created for the sake of having a relationship. And Yitzchak is the first person to be able to have a high-level relationship with which comes out to an expression of love. As the next source, Vayevea Yitzchak ha'olah, Yitzchak takes Rivka to his tent, to the tent of his mom. Vayikach et Rivka, vatihi lo leisha, she becomes a wife to him. Vayahaveha, and he loved her. Till now, we didn't have this. Till now, everybody were having relations, but they weren't having relationships. They were having yada. They were not having ahava, which Yitzchak is the first person that reaches that level. So now we have to understand, why is deen something that allows you to create relationship? Deen is something that allows you to be able to get to an interaction with another person that comes out with love, which is something that you wouldn't have thought would be an outgrowth of deen. You would think that deen would allow you to just... People don't like the word deen. When I say judgment, people say, ichs. You know, people don't like that word. People are scared of the word judgment. And I think this is a very problematic thing, because Shimshi, you went to the base medrash today, right? Did you walk into the wall? Did you walk on the other side and then walk into to the door? You managed to raise your hands to a certain level and push open the door and walk in, right? Now, what is that function called? Opening the door. Now, what is a very basic function of opening the door? You have to judge that your hands don't fly up all the way up. You have to judge that you don't walk into the wall. There are certain judgments that are necessary for life to continue in a functioning manner. Now, we don't like to think of that as judgment, but that is judgment. When you're driving a car, it's an easier analogy. When you're driving a car, you have to judge every single time. How fast am I going? Am I driving into that? Right? There's certain kind of judgment. And when your judgment is impaired, i.e. when you're drinking alcohol, you tend to not make good judgment, and that allows you to crash into a tree, right? So now, judgment is something that is very necessary for the human condition. And so, but we have to do proper judgment, because there is a certain side to judgment, and that's why people are scared of judgment, which is true. People are scared of judgment because there's a certain aspect of it which is contradicting to the pursuit of life. But we'll get to that. So now, let's get back to our concept of Malchiyot, Zichronot, and Shofrot. What is Malchiyot? Kingship, right? We're kinging God. We're making God king. What does that mean? How does someone go about making God a king? Right? You can make a king a king. What does that mean? You just give him your money, right? You pay taxes. You know, what does it mean to make a king a king? What's the difference between a king and a mayor? I don't know. What's the difference between a king and a thief, right? If you're just about giving him money. Meaning, what makes a king a king? And how do we make God a king? There's no throne for him to sit on, right? We can't build a throne for him because he's not physical. We can't put a crown on his head. So, when we're coming to Rosh Hashana and making God a king, what exactly are we doing? Now, I believe that there's a certain emergent property that comes out when people dedicate themselves towards a certain cause, work with other people towards a certain cause. That emergent property, I would like to suggest, is Malchuyot, is the kinglyhood, which is, we'll get to how this applies to Rosh Hashanah, but when two people come together and lift a thing, when one person can lift 100 kilograms and the other person can lift 100 kilograms, together they not only lift 200 kilograms, but they lift 300, 400 kilograms. They lift much more than they could have by themselves. And that synthesis, that outgrowth that comes out from this synthesis, this emergent property, that to a certain extent is Malchiyot. Now, depending on what you choose to dedicate yourself, the synthesis, syntax? The outgrowth from this synthesis is very different, right? So if you have two people that, I don't know, lift, right? They'll lift more. But if you have two people that their pursuit is pushing, they'll push more. They won't lift more, they'll push more. So depending on what you put in, that synthesis, the outgrowth of that melech, if you want to call, that's what it means to be mamlich something. When you're dedicating yourself towards a certain goal, right? This emergent property that comes out of it is a melech. So now, what does it mean when we're saying we're mamlich God? What is God? I think that what we're trying to accomplish in Rosh Hashanah is that we're recognizing that there is a Motsui Rishon, that there is an absolute reality, a prime creator that created everything that is going on over here. And we're saying, we recognize that you exist, and we recognize that all of our actions need to be in congruence with this absolute reality that I have recognized. Right? And that's what Malchiyot is. And we need to do it on Rosh Hashanah. Jack, you get what I'm saying? We are coming on this day and we're saying we recognize that there's an absolute reality, that I need my life to be incongruent with this absolute reality. And why is this important? Because this is the only way that deen could be accomplished. Because when you're judging, you need a scale to judge against. If you go into Rosh Hashanah and you're judging who looks the nicest, who's praying the loudest, who's davening with the most geschmack, right? The end gzar din, the end outgrowth, if you want to call it, the end, what you're coming out from that relationship will be very different than if you come in with a different perspective going in, right? So we need to recognize that we're judging incongruence with absolute reality. That's the only way to do judgment. We don't care about any other kind of judgment. This isn't a parking ticket, small claims court that you're going into. You're going into a court where you're going in front of absolute reality. And that's the concept of Malchiyot. You need to understand that since there's an absolute reality, I recognize that my life needs to be in congruence with this reality. And that allows us to move on to the next part, which is Zichronot. Now that I have established what the scale is, right? Once I establish what currency we're working against, what weight I'm working against, now I'm able to go and count I'm able to remember all of my actions and bring it up to light right next to that. I could take out my morning coffee next to absolute reality, and I'm able to see, does this fit? Does this fit into the big picture of my life as I have just established it that it should be, right? Because if my life is if I'm a light being shined again, what is it? Shined? If I'm being shined against a picture and it doesn't fit, then something needs to change. Now, most people go about changing what they're establishing the scale to be. we're coming and we're placing absolute reality as the head of the scale, and we're going in with zichronot, remembering our past, right? Remembering our past and counting down our past and seeing if it fits with this absolute reality. Okay? And now, once we go through that and we find that our lives actually is in congruence with this absolute reality, and now we are aware and we're conscious about it, that leads us to a reality of shofarot, of horns. Okay, so now, what is this concept of shofarot? Shofarot literally means horns. It first makes its debut by the Akedat Yitzchak, when Abraham takes his son on a road trip, on a nice road trip up the mountain, and they get to the altar, and Yitzchak says, "Hey, Dad, where's the sheep?" And Avram's like, "You're the sheep," yeah, you're the sheep. And Yitzchak accepts it. That's crazy. He accepts it. He says, "You know what? Sure. I'm going to lay down on this altar and have my father kill me." That's crazy. He just accepts it. That's the first time we hear about the shofrot. Two people that are totally invested, 100% in growth. You don't understand that Abraham also, everyone thinks of Yitzchak as if he was the one who was going through, everyone thinks of Abraham, it was so bad because he told everybody not to kill their kids, but he had to kill his kid. He had to kill his kid! That's exactly the problem. Not because he told people not to kill, because he had to kill his kid. Do you understand? This is the one kid he has, other than Ishmael, but the one kid that's born, he has two kids that were born to him at a very old age. He never had kids, and now he has to go ahead and kill one of these kids. The same kid that God gave him, God's like, yeah, take him out. That's crazy. And he's just like, sure, I will do it. I'm sure he had a lot of emotional turmoil, but in the end, he said, sure, yes, I will go ahead. And Yitzchak also. He wasn't a little child. He went ahead and he accepted it. These are two people that are so totally invested in this relationship with absolute reality. They are engaged in absolute reality. And that's where we find Shafot the first time. They take the shofar and they, it doesn't say it, but that's why we blow the same shofar as them, because we're remembering that we're blowing the same shofar as the isle that Avraham ended up killing, because we want to remember that on Shavuot. Where else do we find Shavuot? Har Sinai. Okay. Interesting. When we're in the Ananei HaKavod and moving. When we're literally underneath the presence of God. Okay. When we're going out to war, when we're representing this absolute reality against Amalek, that's where we find it. And Yemot Mashiach. And Bet HaMikdash. Okay. Every single time we blow the shofar, I don't know why specifically that sound. I'm not going to get into why specifically that specific sound has to be the sound, but that is the sound of our relationship with this absolute reality. This is the life of absolute reality. This sound awakens within us this absolute reality when we're connected to it. And that's what we're remembering with this sound. So, once again, to recap, so we're coming into Rosh Hashanah, looking at ourselves, trying to see if the life that we are engaging in is incongruent with the life that we want to engage in, which is absolute reality. God, the King. Okay? And that allows us to get to a level of life which is Shofot. But why are we doing all this? Why are we doing all this specifically on the day of man's creation? We're doing all this specifically on the day of man's creation because this is the only reason we get to live. You don't get to live to eat. You don't get to live to drink beer. You get to live to engage in a relationship with absolute reality, with Amitui Rishon. The entire Rosh Hashanah is just to reaffirm within us life. And that's why life is the only thing we're actually praying for the entire time. Katvenu b'sefer HaChaim. Place us in the book of life. Let us live. Not because we'll be good, let us live. It's supposed to rejuvenate you when you come out from Rosh Hashanah. When you come out from this whole ordeal, you say, either I need to fix something, and now I know that my life is incongruent, and I can go ahead and fix it. Or you say, my life is already incongruent, and I know that I have a life to go out and live. It's to reaffirm in us that we constantly have to be checking ourselves and redirecting our course to be able to be in the congruency of this absolute reality. But if we're not in this, we have the Midah of Rachamim. Thank God. Thank God that we have 10 days that lead to Yom Kippur to retry and to actually try to get again to this concept of Shofot. It's a backup plan. The 10 days. It's a backup plan to once again reinform ourselves that we're in this plan. So now, where do we see the 10 days? Where do we see the 10 days? It's on the source sheet. Rosh Hashanah. Skip down to the bottom. It's on the bottom. Masechet Rosh Hashanah. Yud Chet Amud Aleph. I believe so. Well, I don't know why they put two dots and another. Okay. Beyechid Eimat. The Gemara is talking about tshuva, right? Beyechid Eimat. When is the individual person's tshuva accepted? Amar Rabba Baravua. Elu 10 yamim sheben Rosh Hashanah leyom HaKippurim. The 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Vayhi k'aseret yamin vaygaf Hashem et Naval. As we know that in these 10 days, Naval, which we'll get to in a second, was struck. So, my avidaitayu, well, I won't get into the details, but we see that the remez that we have in the Talmud to the Aseret Yemei Tshuva is the 10 days of Naval. Now, let us scroll back. It's up the source right before. The story itself of Naval. I put the entire thing. I'm not going to read the entire thing. But I definitely advise that whoever who wants to, you should learn Tanakh, just in general. But this part specifically, before Rosh Hashanah, you should probably read. But just to give a recap, Shmuel dies, and David HaMelech is in the, wherever he is, where is he exactly? He's in the plains of Yehuda, if I remember correctly. And he's the de facto king of that area, because Shaul is still king, right? And because he is the de facto king, he is guarding everybody's crops and he's guarding everybody's flocks, and nobody is losing any money which they normally would from people stealing their flocks. Now it's Rosh Hashanah, and his soldiers want to eat. He sends 10 servants, Vayishlach David 10 ne'arim, 10 servants, and he says, Alu Carmela, go up to the Carmel, Ubatem el Naval, go up to Naval, Usha'altem lo bishmi leshalom, go up to Naval and ask him in peace. And ask him for food. Ask him for food and tell them, I saved your flocks, and nobody lost flocks in any of this time. And because of that, if you could kindly please give us some food. Okay, Naval explains back, Vaya'an Naval et avdei David, Vayomer, Mi David? Who is David? Umi ben Ishai? Who is the son of Ishai? Hayom rabu avadim hamitpartzim ish mipnei adonav. ולקחתי את לחמי ואת מימי ואת טבחתי אשר טבחתי לגזוזי ונתתי לאנשים אשר לא ידעתי אי מזה המה? I'm going to give my food to strangers? Are you crazy? Are you nutso? You want me to feed an entire army? Literally? You guys are nuts! Okay? So now, the Nare David just turn around. They go home. They go back to David. David is outraged. David is outraged. The same David, by the way, who wouldn't kill Shaul, who wants to kill him. He's outraged and he wants to kill Naval. Okay? Naval's wife, Avigail, goes up to David and consoles him and says, don't worry, it's, she brings food. And she says, don't worry, what's the word? He's like his name, he's a carcass. Okay? And here, take this food, and he gives her the Naval's food. And he calms down. To David. Right. Then she comes back. And what's the wording? Vatavo Avigal el Naval. So Avigal comes back from giving David HaMelech all of Naval's food, pretty much. Vehine lo mishteh beveito. Naval is eating a feast. Ki mishteh HaMelech. Like the feast of the king. Velev Naval tov alav. And his heart is good on himself. Vehu shikor ad meod. And he's very drunk, man. Velo igida lo davar katon vegadol. Didn't say anything. Ad or boker. Till the morning comes. Let's let him eat. Vahi baboker betzet hayayin min Naval, when he sobers up, vataged lo ishto et advarim haele, and she tells him, hey honey, I fed the army. Vayamat libo bekirbo, and his heart died within him, v'hu haya la'even, and he became a stone. Vahi ka'aseret hayamim, and there were 10 days, vayigof Hashem et Naval vayimot, and God killed Naval and he died. He struck him and he died. This is very interesting, because I believe that this is exactly what is going on over here in these Aseret Yemei Teshuvah and what is going on from Rosh Hashanah. I think that what is going on over here is a problem of coronating yourself. Naval coronates himself as king. He makes himself king. He feeds for himself. He eats for himself. He's so involved in the pursuit of himself that he's not able to la'akir tov. He's not able to recognize the good that another person, which David HaMelech, who is the king, gives to him. He's not able to look outside of himself because he already placed himself in this position where he himself is the king of himself. That's not a life. If you're so involved in the pursuit of yourself that you're not able to interact in a relationship with anybody else, you are no better than a stone. You're an animated stone. You're worse than a cat. You're a stone. You're nothing. You're nothing. You're a rock. You can't engage in a relationship with anybody in this world. You can't engage with the purpose of what this world is meant to be. You deserve to die. And that's what we're learning from Naval. Avigal understands that. He's a carcass. That's his name. He's a carcass. Because he's a person who does not know how to relate to any single person. Because he placed himself as a king. Rosh Hashanah comes and says, no. Who's the king? Who's the king? Absolute reality. God. God is the king. And if God is the king, you have no right to sit down and make feasts for yourself. And if God is the king, you have no right to engage in idle whatever that doesn't lead to anything. You have no right. You don't have a right to your life. You have a right to use your life in a proper way, but you don't have a right to just use your life for whatever you want to use because you are the also knowing great person that just happened to stumble upon the earth. That's naval. That's a carcass. And so that's what we're trying to come and approach in Rosh Hashanah. And that leads us to Sukkot, which is living in God's shade, which we won't get to there. Maybe I'll talk about that before Sukkot. But the entire purpose of Rosh Hashanah is to allow us to realign our lives, to be able to engage in an actual relationship with this absolute reality, which is the entire pursuit of life. And I would just like to end off with a quote from Socrates. I don't think he meant it like this at all. I didn't see any single person who understands this like this, but I just think it's a very good quote to go into Rosh Hashanah. His quote is, this is from his deathbed, Plato wrote it in the dictum. The unexamined life is not a life worth living. Now, I don't know what he meant it for, but I think it means that if you don't constantly, at least once a year, but at every pinnacle point of your life, or every milestone moment of your life, stop yourself and ask, is the pursuit that I'm engaging in congruent with absolute reality? If you don't constantly recalibrate your internal GPS to true north, if you don't really recognize that there's an absolute reality and attempt to reconnect to that absolute reality, it's better to die. Chag Sameach.
This has been a Platforms podcast. Please share it with your friends. If you can think of one person to send it to, please take the time. It truly is the best way to help us out. If you have any comments or suggestions, please go and email platformspodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.